Welcome to What is Happiness? If you haven't got with the channel before, this is a space where we talk about everything to do with people's thoughts, feelings, and journeys into finding happiness. I'm so excited to finally share with you our very first full-length sit-down interview with someone who has their own incredible journey to finding happiness. I'm glad to call this person my friend and someone who's been a mentor in my own personal journey. Doel has battled some of life's major lows, bouts of depression and addiction to alcohol, homelessness, and even bouts of suicide and self-harm. And he's gone through an incredible journey to become the man that I know. He's persevered through such lows to become a successful man with his own business, a motivated and determined person who puts himself through crazy physical challenges, and someone who has found his own definition of happiness. An organic story that I think you're going to enjoy. I really hope you like this interview. If you do, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the follow button. You know what to do. Without further ado, you're watching What is Happiness, and welcome.
Welcome to Doel.
Thank you very much.
Woo!
Wow. Number one.
So, how's things? How are you doing today, Ian?
I'm good. Yeah. Very well. Yeah, life's good.
Nice.
Life's good.
Got some plans later on this weekend?
Got some plans.
Good man.
Got a night out.
Nice.
Got some running to do.
Good.
So yeah, it's good.
Good to hear. Good. So, why don't we begin where all good stories start, which is at the beginning.
Right.
And why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you come from?
Okay. So I grew up on a farm near Winchester, so middle of Hampshire. Brother, sister, cat.
Hello.
And to be honest, it was fairly idyllic. So yeah, we grew up in the middle of nowhere. We had our closest sort of friends were half a mile up the road. We ran riot on acres of land and just had a great time. We really didn't care about much in the world.
In terms of upbringing and how you got on with your parents, what was that like?
Young relationships were really good, to be honest. We were just trusted. We were just trusted to be home, be sensible. Wasn't always the case. Did a lot of stupid things, which they happily remind us about. Generally, things involving fires and silly things like that, and jumping people on bikes and all that sort of weird, wonderful things that kids do. But yeah, we were allowed to pretty much free rein.
Nice.
So that was brilliant, and sort of can't sort of thank them enough for that upbringing, if I'm honest.
Great.
So
great.
Yeah, it was nice.
It's really refreshing, interesting. I know we caught up a couple of times about what that upbringing was like. So different from like the city lifestyle, and the kind of the openness and freedom and some of the things you got up to is really interesting. Playing in a barn and
all sorts of
crazy
weird and
stuff.
wonderful stuff.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah, and I'd say the only thing that actually I missed from that was having mates around to do stuff with. So it was always, you always sort of doing stuff on your own, or there was probably 5 or 6 of us, what I class as local, but that's local within a couple of miles. And we'd all catch up, always at the same point or whatever. But it was always that, actually, all my mates were at school. All my schoolmates lived sort of down the road, so it was like, I have to get on my bike and go and see them. And that was always a bit of a pain. But okay, can't complain.
Fair enough. So, did you finish school after like year 11? Did you go into college? I don't think I actually ever asked that.
No, so I finished at 16.
Okay.
In fact, I think I finished it even before my birthday. I think I finished at 15. Not that that matters.
Well, it's the same birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just shout that out. That's cool.
Obviously, that's why I was so cool. So, finished school at 15. Decided that I was going to have the summer to figure out what I wanted to do. And I sort of knew what I wanted to do, which was go into print or something of that sort of field. And my backup plan was to join the army.
Right.
So it was, job by September. If I haven't got a job by September, then I'll go and join the army.
Was any of that parental enforced, actually?
No.
Right.
We were expected to get a job.
Okay.
We weren't expected to go to college. Wasn't even discussed.
Got you. Uni was therefore just not even a
Uni
factor.
was something that posh people did.
Right, got you.
No offense, possible. But yeah, college, uni, that was just something that other people did. And we were very much, no, once you leave school, you work, you earn, you pay. So that's what we did. So yeah, I worked all summer, and then got a job around the end of August. Started in September with my job, so I did an apprenticeship, 3-year apprenticeship, and then ended up going to college with that as well. So
right,
sort of best of both worlds.
amazing. So walk me through the time in which you ended up having kids, because you're a really passionate and really good father, somewhat single dad at the moment, of
Right.
2 kids who are now teenagers.
Not kids.
Yeah, who are late teenagers.
Yeah.
God, one of them's 20. You got 20.
Yeah, I know. Awful.
So walk me through what that experience was like.
Well, I knew I wanted kids early on. I knew from a really early age I wanted kids, like sort of 15, 16. I think that was sort of, I don't know if it's still the same today with kids, but when we were growing up, that was just expected.
Right.
You know, you grew up, you got a job, you got a girlfriend, you ended up getting married, you had kids, you sort of bought a house locally, and that was it. Ended up having kids. What was I? I was actually about 28, 29. So I met their mum when I was 21, I think. So I was 25 when we got married. And it was like, right, we'll have a couple of years of, just knocking about and going and seeing stuff and having nice holidays. And then it was like, well, I don't really want to be a dad over 30. And Nick was quite keen as well. So it was like, fine, we'll have kids now. So Joe was born when I was 29, I think. And then Izzy was born when I was 31. So
I know shortly after that time you described and talked to me before about hitting a point where things sort of crashed in terms of the trajectory and what seemed like quite a positive journey up until that point.
I'd say an easy journey up until that point,
right.
if I'm honest.
Yeah.
There's always stuff people don't recognise or even know what's going on, but up until that point it was fairly easy.
So what got hard?
Divorce.
Right. Okay. Right.
So I didn't find marriage hard. I didn't find kids particularly hard. And I've really thought about it recently, just because lots of stuff's been going on. But I think the one thing that I figured up until that point, my sort of life was always moving up, and then it just sort of stabled out, and it was like, right, well, your husband, your dad, I earn enough money to keep us all going. We had a nice house, and it was like, right, now it's just keeping all that together. And it sounds really wrong, but that's a little bit boring.
Right.
And actually, what I couldn't see in all of that was any more growth. I'm just one of these people. I need to be doing stuff. I need to be growing in some form or another. And I felt at the time that was sort of getting squeezed out we're sort of in this safe little bubble, and all we need to do is maintain this safe little bubble, and that's not what I wanted to do at all.
So did you find yourself kind of fighting against that lifestyle and thinking this just isn't right for me?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, that's really natural, I think, for a lot of people, yeah.
And then that led to various different things, and yeah, we ended up splitting up. It's about 34, I think.
Right.
Yeah, about 34.
Okay. So, so you're splitting up at 34, and I guess that isn't, while you recognise that boat that you were in was slightly boring, certainly obviously wasn't the direction that you expected to go in.
No. I'm not sure I'd use the word boring, but it was just...
Stagnant, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. And not really where I wanted to be, or not where I could see myself being. And even through lots of conversations, it was sort of trajectory wasn't changing at all. And yeah, I think we actually both then wanted different things. I think parenthood brought that out in us. It pushed me on, and I think with Nick, it just made her want to be more safe.
Right.
So actually, you sort of got one going, I'm really happy here, and the other one sort of going, I am, but I really need to do other stuff.
Right. Okay.
And at the time, most of that was work. And then the print industry is fairly volatile. And I lost. So when Joe was born, the week Joe was born, I was supposed to start a new job. And then within 2 years, that company had gone under. So the day that I was supposed to start the next job, Izzy was born. So there's a bit of a pattern there. And within 2 years, they'd been bought out and we'd moved. But the original company where I was when Joe was born was really good. In our call, they were sort of talking about taking over the company at some point, which, from my point of view, is brilliant. This is what I want to do. And Nick was anything but that. No, we've got a nice house, we've got a nice life. Let's just maintain. So I think that's just, from a personal point of view, something that I've realised we're just both in very different spaces. So yeah, bit of a strange one.
So there was a period of time in that where you've just been describing. There was a period in which you described previously that you hit rock bottom, and it was a bit of a catalyst for you to make some changes.
Yeah.
Do you mind walking through what that rock bottom was?
No, that's fine. So yeah, divorced around 34, 35, and I think I saw that as, I felt like I was a bit of a problem because I knew I wanted different things. So from my point of view, walking away or whatever, however you want to put it, I was the problem. So if I got rid of the problem, then life would just be easier for everyone else, if that makes sense. And within 3 or 4 months, it just turned ridiculous. From, had a nice 4-bedroom home, nice family, kids are good, to not really knowing where I was staying, not having anywhere really to stay, so I was sleeping at a mate's on his sofa. It's not the best place to be.
The lad was kind of all over the place at that point, I'm sure.
And I just I didn't sort of want to be around people, if I'm honest. So I just I actually ended up sleeping rough for a bit, just I don't really want to be around anyone, don't need anyone else involved in my crap. Just disengaged with life and people. And the only thing I really sort of reconnected with was work. I'd taken another management role, and it was just right. Well, that's what I do. So I would go to work at 6 in the morning. I'd still be there at 6 at night. Right. And it was like, right, that's my focus. Okay. And the only other time I really focused was when I had the kids. Right. And as the sort of year went on, so I think we split up May, June, and by the time Christmas rolled around, it was just, I was waiting for 10:30 for the pub to open. Right. Just all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. I slept in the car. Thought about suicide, attempted suicide process. I've never been a massive drinker, and then it was just a way out. It was just a way of killing life, if I'm honest. So say I had the kids, I would have the kids. Nick would come home. And I would, rather than just descend into this argument, because that's generally where we were, it was like, right, well, I'll leave you to it. And it was literally, right, I'll drive as close as I can to home, and then I'll just find a pub. Right. And I'll just stop and drink. And then it was, well, didn't really matter how many, didn't really matter where, when, who. And so that sort of perpetuated itself into prime. Well, if I can, rather than go somewhere, so rather than go back to my mates to stay, I drive somewhere that's close to a pub and it's a bit secluded, sleep in the car, don't need to bother anyone, I can have as many drinks as I want, and it's just easier. You don't have to think about anyone else. Really helps with that disengaging, doesn't it, I guess, And was that at all linked with the suicide attempt? Was there anything related to alcohol at that point, or was that actually purely kind of you thinking, I don't want to say rationally, but... No, I think that was more of a rational thought that was not alcohol fueled in that way. I know I was having problems with alcohol because I can remember being at work at 10 in the morning thinking, come on, hurry up, I want the pubs to open.
Right.
Going because I was just having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Literally sort of walking into a meeting going, right, I'm just going to run out, I'll be half an hour, knowing that I was going to the pub. I think I came back about 2.5 hours later, fairly buoyed up, had a great afternoon, and sort of really didn't care.
Right.
Just genuinely didn't care.
Right.
And I thought this is and although you're doing it, and although you're in it, and although you know everything you're doing is wrong, that was just where I was, who cares?
Right.
Who genuinely cares? What do I care? And what's the worst that can happen? Was sort of where I was. Yeah. Okay. Sort of at rock bottom as it is. I don't have anywhere to call home. Didn't really have much money because that was all going towards mortgage and kids and all of that sort of thing. And although I decided to walk away, that's a really hard one then to get your head around. Because obviously you don't just go, oh, I'm going to walk away from marriage. It's, there's lots of other things involved. So then you're sort of questioning. No, there was lots of questions. Should I have done it? Should I have walked away? What was the best thing to do?
Second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
really?
basically.
Yeah. And
then that led to, well, me coming to the conclusion that I was the problem, and therefore if I wasn't around, the problem doesn't exist. Easy, everyone can get on with their life.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of led to, effectively thoughts about suicide, and then basically one evening sort of walking into the sea and thinking, well, fine, if it happens, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then just catching myself at some point shit, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't quite think. Well, the reason was that I caught myself was because of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more because of something that had been said in the past about suicide being selfish. And at the time I never really understood the comment. And as I say, I was trying to take myself out the equation because I thought that was easier, but actually looking back, it would have been selfish of me to have done it because Nick wouldn't have had any support, kids wouldn't have had any other parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually thought I can't do that because it is selfish. And I thought, as hard as this is going to be, I need to sort of stop.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point I did. Got up the next day, went to work as normal.
Mm-hmm. After nothing happened?
Tried to carry on, yeah. And then I had a couple more episodes where really sort of drunk quite heavily, again thought about suicide, but didn't do anything about it at the time. And then that led to, rather than actually knowing that I wasn't going to kill myself because that wasn't the best way to go forward, even though it did get close a couple of times, or the following year, actually started self-harming because that was just easier.
Wow, okay.
That's easier to do.
Sorry, the only reason I say wow is because we actually haven't ever touched on that. We've gone, you and me, in personal conversations have gone into quite a few deep topics, and actually the period of time where you were contemplating suicide, something we've opened up and expanded on very recently. But I didn't realise self-harm was also a part of the picture as well, in the sense of, and again to explain my wow moment to it was, I was expecting, and one of the questions I'm going to get to in a bit is what was the catalyst for change in regards to you being at this low point, but thinking that maybe suicide was it. But then actually this was a really prolonged episode for you, in which the breaking up with your partner to then attempting suicide to then maybe even continuing with self-harming as a perhaps lesser form of...
It was just it felt like an easier way of, it was like a weird punishment. I was really pissed off with myself. I was raging against the world for everything that was going on. And it was just easier to do that to myself than it was to cause anyone else harm. So I think that sort of started after the Christmas period. And I'd had quite a few. By then I'd managed to get myself a flat but it was in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So I really love this self-isolation bit. And then I just found myself like I would just sit in the middle of a flat, it was effectively in the middle of the woods. And I would just drink. I can remember drinking just bottles of whiskey, waking up on the floor, all sorts of weird and wonderful sort of stuff. Just waking up one morning, bottle of whiskey there, half a glass full, bit of sick, just thinking, "Fuck is going on?" And obviously that's not great. It's not somewhere you want to be.
Sure.
So I'd have moments where I'd catch myself, but I think when you're in that period, you can catch yourself and you can stop things at that period, but you can't dig your way out. If that makes sense. So self-harming was just an easier way of digging myself out. Fine, it's something I can do, something that only affects me, and there's some weird relief out of it. And the only problem with that is it doesn't last very long, so you tend to do more.
Right.
And then that led to another episode where